Who dat to the Who Dat Nation? Welcome to the Who Dat Say podcast, your podcast for the New Orleans Saints here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and this is the preseason week 2 preview as the New Orleans Saints will host the Jacksonville Jaguars this Sunday, 12 noon in the Caesars Superdome. As we all know, the Saints lost their preseason opener to the Los Angeles Chargers by the score of 27-13. This where we got to see our first look at Kellen Moore as our new head coach, our first look at Tyler Shuck as our possible quarterback of the future. We saw some new players. We saw some new systems with the defense. A lot of positive things to look at and a lot of negative things to look at this team. But too early to judge, too early to say that, oh man, the Saints are going to be trash, or the Saints, I think if they just tweak this, we can make a run to the Super Bowl. We need to pump the brakes on both of those narratives. So let's just take the ride. Let's just go ahead on and just sit and enjoy the ride. I don't know, going by last week's game, where the Saints will end up at the end of this football season. But I will say it's gonna be rough. It's gonna be rough because this is a completely revamped team. The Sean Payton era is over. It's done. That left last year, the last remnants of Sean Payton here in New Orleans is gone. And, you know, I'm not celebrating that because I loved Sean Payton as the New Orleans Saints head coach. I mean, hey, he delivered us our first and only up to this point Super Bowl, and a lot of success around that. You know, we've been to the playoffs multiple times with him, multiple division championships with him, multiple NFC championship appearances with him. And so we've had the most success under that era, but for reasons unknown at this time, it's over. That's over. It's time to move on. And you know, you can look at it one of two ways. You can look at it in a positive note, like, look, it was time to move on. Sean Payton needed a fresh start somewhere else, which ended up being over in Denver with the Broncos. You know, he's seeing some success there. Looks like he's building just like he did here in 2006. And so you can look at it that way, or you can look at it in a negative way. You can look at it in the way that, you know, it ran its course. You know, players were aging. We weren't getting any young players in to develop, you know, during his tenure. And either you can point at Sean Payton or you can point at Mickey Loomis. Either way it goes, the Sean Payton era is over after Dennis Allen, who was the defensive coordinator under Sean Payton and took over after his departure, failed. That experiment failed miserably. And now we have a rookie, not just at quarterback, but at head coach. And so it's a lot of new. And you can't shoot for the moon, man. The reason I'm going on this tangent here is the fact that after that preseason game last week against the Chargers, if you look online, if you listen to some of these radio shows and whatnot, man, the sky was falling. It was doom and gloom. We were back to the bags over our heads. You know, it was over. And I'm like, my God, number one is a preseason game. Calm down. I don't care if it was a 20-year head coach and a veteran quarterback with multiple Super Bowl wins. It's a preseason game. Relax. You know, it wasn't a slaw. It wasn't like the Saints went out there and got demolished by the Chargers. If you ask me, if you look over that game, and I watched it again over this past week to kind of reevaluate some things and catch some things that I possibly missed, or look at a certain player that I didn't really get a good glimpse at during the live broadcast of the game. When I looked over the game, Saints played a decent game. The only thing that killed the Saints were the 3 turnovers by all 3 quarterbacks, which is I don't think that's ever been done. All 3 quarterbacks turned the ball over. Spencer Rattler fumbled. Tyler Shuck threw a pick six, and Jake Hayner threw a pick, and all 3 turnovers turned into points for the Chargers. And you take away those 3 turnovers, Saints probably win that game. The Saints had a lot of positives in that game. They were moving the ball efficiently. They were running the ball pretty decent in the first half, not so much in the second. It went into throw mode when they kind of switched up the play calling. But for the most part, the Saints moved the ball efficiently. I think the defense played well. To say that this was a new system for a lot of players, and a lot of players that were on it defense, that's trying to get acclimated with this new system. And so I think they played pretty well, all things considered. Now, the question is, how do they respond to that game? Just this past week, the Saints held a joint practice with the Los Angeles Rams. I guess keeping the LA vibe going, they played the Chargers on Sunday and held joint practices with the Rams throughout the week while they were still in Irvine, California, which is, I guess, is a good thing. You can only hit each other so much. I kind of like these joint practices where they play other teams and get kind of an extra preseason game in. Because preseason's been cut down to 3 games now as opposed to the 4, and so you get a little bit more going on. You get a better evaluation, and this is for the coaches. We didn't have access to it here at home, but you can see more. You can do more. There's more plays being ran instead of the vanilla play calling that we get during an actual preseason game. And so it's a good thing. But the big question is, how do they respond to that loss? And what have they learned from the mistakes that they made throughout that game? Not just the turnovers, but there were other mistakes. They had I think Saints had 7 penalties in that game, which isn't the end of the world. I've seen Saints games where they were in double-digit penalties. So, and that was in the regular season. So that wasn't too bad, but it's still some things you can clean up there. Now I'm sounding like Dylan Allen again. Clean up. I'm traumatized by that. But anywho's, that's an important question because you have a situation last week where Tyler Shuck threw that pick six, and the big narrative all week long was, but did you see how he responded with the touchdown drive after that turnover? Yeah, that was awesome. That was awesome. My big thing was, in order to respond, you got to fail. And that was a big fail in my eyes. That pick six, that was just a horrible throw. It was just a bad throw. But he did respond justly. That was a beautiful throw that he threw to Mason Tifton for that touchdown. And so, good response. Now, the team as a whole, can we get a good response in this game against Jacksonville? Or will it be another glorified practice scrimmage, if you will, from this team? Just as a reminder, the Saints finished last season 5-12. The Jacksonville Jaguars were slightly worse than us with 4-13 as their record. The Saints drafted with their first pick Calvin Banks Jr. The Jacksonville Jaguars drafted Travis Hunter, and that was a huge pickup for them, a versatile player, one of the best players in the draft last season. He plays both ends. He's an Iron Man. He plays both sides of the field. He won't be playing in this game. According to their injury report, he's a little banged up. He may sit. I would imagine anybody who's banged up, just a slight bit, it stumped their toe or whatever, will not be playing this Sunday. As far as the Saints go on their injury list, and we have a few players who are injured reserve right now. The Saints placed Will Clapp, who only lasted 2 plays into this season. They placed him on injured reserve. Bud Means was just placed on injured reserve as well, the wide receiver. Mason Pline, he was placed on injured reserve. He's the tight end. Also injured or banged up right now is Alante Taylor. He's questionable. I don't think he's going to play. Trevor Penning, I should say, he's questionable as well. I doubt if he plays either. But the Saints also did some moving and shaking this week as far as their roster. It is confusing. It's very confusing. And this goes back to Sunday. On the Saints roster, you had wide receiver Chris Tyree. Chris Tyree was on the team. He got cut at halftime. They waived him at halftime of Sunday's game against the Chargers. So he got waived, and then he got re-signed the following day and then placed on injured reserve. And so 2 days later, Bud Means, he was placed on injured reserve. That made room for them to sign a offensive tackle, or an offensive guard, I should say, Mike Paniksuck. And then they placed Mason Pline on injured reserve, who they had just signed a week ago. They claimed him off of waivers from the 49ers. And then they signed Jermaine Martin, a defensive end, who is a real good player. He's been in the league for, about 2-3 years now. Decent player. Then they waived, to make room for him, they waived quarterback Hunter Deckers, who I forgot was even on the team. And but this is like his 3rd time being waived this offseason. I would imagine he's coming back, but for what reason, I don't know. But he is no longer on the squad. I want to run down the Saints depth chart in the way they have it listed, and this is their starters, just the starters. They still have Spencer Rattler starting at quarterback right now, even though Tyler Shuck will get the start this Sunday, I believe, against the Jacksonville Jaguars. But on their depth chart, official depth chart, Spencer Rattler is still the number 1 quarterback. Running back, of course, is Alvin Kamara. Number 1 starting receiver is Chris Olave. He's questionable. I doubt if he play. Shadid is the number 2, and Brandon Cooks is the number 3. Tight end, Juwan Johnson is your starting tight end, and I think that's by default because every other tight end is hurt. It's everybody. Taysom Hill is out. Foster Monroe is out. And just told you about Mason Pline. He's out. So this is Juwan Johnson's time to shine. This is where he needs to show that he earned that deal that he got this offseason when the Saints decided to re-sign him and to come back to New Orleans. Our offensive line goes as such. At left tackle is our rookie, Calvin Banks Jr. Left guard is Trevor Penning, who is questionable for this game. Eric McCoy is also our starting center, but I don't think he's going to play. He's not injured, but just like last week, he didn't play like many other veteran players who didn't play last week to preserve them for the regular season. But he is your starting center. At right guard, Cesar Ruiz. At right tackle is Taliense Fuaga. Going to our defense, starters is left defensive end Cameron Jordan, nose tackle Davin Gotro. I don't know why I was about to say Calvin Banks, but Davin Gotro. At right defensive end, you have Brian Brzee. At linebacker, weak side, you have Carl Granderson. Linebacker, Demario Davis. Pete Warner, strong side linebacker, will be Chase. Chase Young. And the reason they're categorized as linebackers, we're in a 3-4 defense now. We're no longer in the 4-3. And so they are Carl Granderson, who you would normally see as a defensive end, is now a weak side linebacker, and same thing with Chase Young, who is the strong side linebacker, but they are still DNs by trade. Cornerback, Kool-Aid McKinstry is your number one corner. Strong safety is Justin Reed. Free safety, Julian Blackman. Cornerback, Alante Taylor. As I said, he's a little banged up right now. But also in the secondary, you have Isaac Yeldum. Our field goal kicker is Blake Groupie. Our punter is James Burnap. Now, these are all subject to change as we approach the regular season. I want to transition back to our free safety, Blackman. I haven't seen the practices since they've been in California, but from what I hear, Blackman is tearing it up in practice. I am super encouraged by that. I feel good about that move that the Saints made. A lot of, I'm talking national. These aren't local fluff pieces that's gonna, blow smoke up your behind because they bleed black and gold and don't have an objective opinion. These are national analysts who, for the most part, feel the Saints probably will win 3 games total max this season. They have said the steal of the offseason was Julian Blackman coming to the New Orleans Saints. And I'm a fan of his. I liked him when he was in Indianapolis. I thought he was a real good safety there. So it is, moving on from the Honey Badger isn't going to be easy. Now, granted, it's not like Tyrann Mathieu was shutting it down during his tenure here in New Orleans. He's a hometown hero, and he's done great things in the league. He's a Super Bowl champion. He's an All-Pro, and probably be a Hall of Famer when it's all said and done. But his time in New Orleans was not the greatest. He delivered. It wasn't like he was just here to get a check. I'll give him that. I actually thought he had some really good games. But there's been some games when he wasn't there, and you could tell that he wasn't there physically, man. He just couldn't do it like he used to do it. For the Tigers, for the LSU Tigers, or for the Cardinals, or for the Chiefs. I mean, he just didn't have it anymore. He tried, he gave it his best, but it was time. It was time, and I think he knew that. He knew he couldn't go as hard as he wanted. He couldn't give it the 100% that he felt the team deserves. But regardless, I think this is a really, really, really good addition to the New Orleans Saints. Justin Reed as well. Shout out. No relation, but he is also a good addition to that secondary, and you need that back there because you have some young pieces, Kool-Aid McKinstry. He's still, he's a second-year player, and he didn't get much exposure last season. And we're moving on from we basically got 2 new starters there. I mean, Alante Taylor has experience as a starter, but, he was behind Paulson Adebo in the pecking order, and then you had Marshawn Lattimore on the other side. So with those 2 additions gone, and I think those were the 2 of our better 1-2 combos at safety that we've had in a long time. Moving on from that is going to be tough. Now, granted, Paulson Adebo, he'll give you a PI. He'll average 1 a game. He'll give you that, but he was also really, really good, but you had to take the good with the bad when it came to Paulson Adebo. But I actually liked him. I was hurt when he left. I was legitimately hurt. Yeah, I like Alante Taylor, but Alante Taylor, I think, was out of the 2, out of him and Paulson Adebo, I like Taylor more. But what messed Taylor up was Dennis Allen, bouncing him around. They had him at nickel, then they tried to move him back to the outside, and by the time he got comfortable in the nickel, it was time to go back over here. It was just, I mean, I say Dennis Allen, but it was just injuries and things of that nature that kind of threw off his development. And I don't think he had a proper season where he just stayed at one position. And that's the same thing like with our offensive line. And it's nobody's fault per se. I pinned it on Dennis Allen because I was so fed up with him. I blamed everything on him. When it rained, I blamed Dennis Allen. But it was just unforeseen circumstances a lot of the time. Kool-Aid McKinstry was a dog at Alabama, so can he transition over? I mean, I saw some flashes of good things from him. I think he's going to be a good corner. Us as Saints fans, we got to give these guys opportunities, and I'm saying that because we've gotten used to seeing a shutdown corner in Marshawn Lattimore, and that's gone. And we can't expect these guys to be shut down corners. If they are, great. That'll be awesome. But I'm not looking for that. I'm just looking for you to do your job and do it well. And if everything works out according to plan, I think we have the right pieces because the up front, in our up front, if those guys deliver like they're supposed to, and I'm looking at you, Chase Young, I'm looking at you, Brian Brzee, I'm looking at you, Gotro. If they deliver like they're supposed to, all those guys in the secondary got to do is cover. Just give me 3 seconds. Give me 3 good seconds of coverage, and everything else should work out. And so we shall see. We'll see moving forward with that. Now, I'm not looking for all of this to happen Sunday. All I'm looking for is some cleanups on these penalties that I saw last week against the Chargers. Cleaning up the turnovers. Let's cut that down. Let's cut that down. I know some things are unavoidable, like that sack fumble against Rattler. He didn't see it coming, but you still got to secure the ball when you're in that pocket because you don't know. You're basically tiptoeing through a minefield when you're in the pocket. So you got to have better control of the ball, a better grip on the ball there. The picks. Now, Jake Hader, I don't really blame him. Jake Hader was trying to do something. Jake Hader is behind the 8 ball. He's third on the list here. And so he's trying to make something happen. And at that point, Saints were losing big, and he was trying to make something happen. So I don't 100% go after him there. But the Tyler Shuck thing, look, it's his first game. It was literally his first NFL game. So, okay, you got to know, don't look down the receiver. I mean, he looked them down, but when they broke the huddle, he stared down the receiver all the way. And all the cornerback did was just lock in like, yep, got him. And that's what happened. So these are curable things. These are curable things. And so I'm encouraged. I'm not like everybody else. I'm encouraged. I'm not over the moon like, oh my God, we're gonna suck. Nah. This is gonna be a process, man. Just be cool. Be cool, relax, and let this play out. Trust the process. If we get into the regular season and it's week 10 and we still look like this, then we can talk. But let's learn. We all learning here. Kellen Moore gonna have to learn to be a head coach. Yeah, he has experience as an NFL quarterback. He has experience as an offensive coordinator. This is his first go as a head coach. He's surrounded by some good people around him. Brandon Staley, our defensive coordinator, he was a former head coach for those same San Diego, used to be San Diego, but the LA Chargers. And he had mild success. He didn't go to the playoffs and succeed there, but he has experience as head coach. The staff that he put together has been on championship teams. He's been on a championship team just this last year with the Philadelphia Eagles. So it's all about getting the pieces together, weeding out what you need, who's going to work, who's not going to work. I'm looking at this roster. I think the Saints have a really good roster, a really slept on roster. And I'm just picking, I just went through the starters. I ain't even go through who all is on the team, second and third string players who, hey, they may make an impact. Who knows, especially when you look at running back. The running back position is key in a lot of ways because, the Saints need to run the ball. Like I said, the Saints ran the ball pretty good in the first half. Not great, but pretty good. But they need to improve a little more. Kendrick Miller, he looked decent. I need him to step up this year. We haven't seen Devin Neal yet. He's hurt as well. He won't be playing either. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I don't know. I'm kind of skeptical about that young man right now. But there's Cam Akers is also there. That other guy, what's his name? Oh my God, he's the fastest player on the team. Why is his name escaping me? My God. But anyways, he looked pretty good, but I just seen him run out of the backfield and catch. I haven't seen him run between the tackles yet. So that's going to be a big battle. Everybody's focused on this quarterback thing. I think the quarterback thing is already decided. Actually, that was decided in April. We just don't know officially, but you pretty much know who the starter is going to be, and I'm fine with that. But we just gotta go through the motions here. Yeah, man. Another big thing is also receiver. It's the receiver. Yeah, we haven't seen Olave and Shadeed yet, but even with those two guys in there, Saints are lacking a big body receiver. Juwan Johnson would kind of fill that void, but he's a tight end for one, and he's not too reliable. he's not the most reliable of pass catchers out there. But we do need a big body receiver. I know it. I think earlier in the free agency, the Saints were looking at Keenan Allen. I don't know what happened. Well, I know what happened. They didn't sign him, but I don't know why that didn't take place. Why the Saints couldn't come to agreement with this, because that would have been a nice pickup. I don't know who else would have been out there that could have helped the Saints in their receiving core, big body wise, but they decided to sign Brandon Cooks. Love Brandon Cooks, but Brandon Cooks is probably my height, and if you haven't seen me in person, I'm short. Now, I can walk under your kitchen table without ducking. So we're basically the same height. And so I don't, but Brandon Cooks is here because of the system. He's familiar with Kellen Moore's system over in Dallas where he coached him. And so, I still think the Saints need another receiver, and it's still time. It can still happen, but we'll see. The last piece of business I wanted to discuss before we get up out of here is the O-line. I don't know, bro. I don't know what we need to do. Wrap these guys in bubble wrap. I don't know, man, but can we keep our O-line healthy? Is there any way possible? Is there any seance, any incantation we can utter, anything that can help us to keep this offensive line healthy? My God. Will Clapp, bro. That was a nice pickup by the Saints to bring in Will Clapp. And the dude didn't last 2 plays, and he's out for the year. Trevor Penning, who I felt was in his rightful spot right there at guard, he gets hurt. It's like, my God. It's my God. We're going into this season already limping again. It's something that has been a bugaboo for the Saints for years. I don't know why the Saints are so injury-ridden, man. Every year after year. It's exhausting, man. It hurts. It hurts because you don't know who to get mad at. You get mad, but you don't know who to get mad at. Do you get mad at the player? I mean, we sitting there, we are getting mad at Kendrick Miller last season because he got hurt. You think he wanted to get hurt? But we got mad at the man. We get mad at the offensive line because they get hurt. Who you get mad at? The coaching staff, how they practice or prepare, the conditioning coaches, the medical staff. Who do you get? You don't even know where to direct this anger, and that's the problem. That's the problem we have as the Who Dat Nation, man. We don't know who to get mad at, but we need to find a way to keep these guys healthy. Not just the offensive line, this whole team. You remember that year when all the running backs got hurt? This is during the Sean Payton era. And it was like, my God, every week we were dropping like flies in the run for running backs. It was unbelievable. You couldn't make this crap up. But it is what it is. So, yeah, I hope that this offensive line can get healthy, especially our starters. If we keep our starters healthy, I know that we have some new pieces depth-wise there, and that's good to have the depth, but you can't get any camaraderie, man. You can't get any chemistry if you're changing players every week, and that's what happened last season. We every week we had a new offensive lineman. It was like playing Wheel of Fortune. We just spinning the wheel every week. Okay, who are we gonna start this week? it was the craziest thing. But that's concerning. That's very concerning. That we're already kind of injury ridden 2 weeks into the preseason. Now, we went into the preseason or into training camp with a lot of injured players already. Taysom Hill is the question mark for me. Taysom Hill, he's been hurt since last year. How serious is that injury? And will he ever come back? I mean, he's not even practicing. How serious is that injury? Foster Monroe, they're talking about he may miss the whole season, but they're holding out hope for that. That didn't even, that was from last season. So how serious is that injury, And we all know Chris Olave with his concussion history, and it's too much. It's too much going on already in the Who Dat Nation. But I'm holding on to hope. I'm trying to stay positive this year. I don't want to rant like I did for the past 3 years, been ranting about this team every single week. My mental health can't take it anymore. So I'm trying to be positive. I'm going to hold on to hope. I'm going to pray every day. And hopefully the Saints can turn this around. Now, I'm going to say this every week, every episode of the Who Dat Said podcast, that I'm not looking for the Saints to do anything this year, and neither should you. Don't look for the Saints to sweep the Falcons, to win a division, to go to the playoffs, and for God's sake, they're definitely not going to the Super Bowl. Get all of that out your head. All of those that I just listed, get that out your head. Now, if a miracle happens and one or two of those things happen, then we can celebrate. We can celebrate like crazy because we didn't see it coming. And so just relax. I'd rather do that than set my expectations super high and know at the end of the day that they're going to come crumbling down. Last year was the prime example for me. Last year, you couldn't tell me the Saints weren't going to the playoffs. I just felt it in my heart at the beginning, this time last year, almost to the day. I felt it in my heart that this was the year the Saints were going to turn it around. And those first 2 weeks of the season, I'm like, I knew it. And then, well, let's not go there. We all know how it all turned out at the end. But anyways, yeah, that's the game. Really nothing to predict about. It's preseason. we don't get into predictions and whatnot until the regular season. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Saints roster, some of our injuries, and some of the things we need to focus on and clean up for this week versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. So we'll see. And after the game on Sunday, we'll be back to recap that game. Whether they win or lose. Once again, it's preseason. Who cares? It doesn't matter if the Saints win or lose. I just want to see this team shine, get better, look better. Even in a loss, I want to see this team look good. Just like last week. My humble opinion, the Saints look good. All things considered. They didn't look like a team that had a rookie head coach, a rookie quarterback, new pieces on offense and defense, losing players during the game and due to injury and this, that, and the third. It should have been a slaughter. Let's not forget the Chargers are a good team. They're a real good team. At least they were last year. And so it isn't like they were playing the Cucamonga Cougars. They were playing a pretty good NFL football team, and they, for the most part of that game, they hung in tight with them. And so I'm encouraged. You should be too. Look, if you're a Saints fan, you should be encouraged that at least they went out there and were competitive for the majority of that game. And if you look over the stats of that game, the Saints, they led in every single category. The total yards, I think they had 50 more yards than the Chargers. The Saints had 300, and I believe the Chargers had 248, so actually 52 yards more than the Chargers. They had more first downs than the Chargers. They also had more turnovers than the Chargers. But they led in every one. Time of possession, they won that as well. So, look, you got to look at the game beyond the game. Don't just look at that final score. Look at the game beyond the game. But that's the preview for the Saints versus the Jacksonville Jaguars, which comes up this Sunday in the Superdome, 12 noon. And after the game, of course, we will recap that game and the performances, who was good, who was bad, who needs to be cut immediately, and we'll see how this all turns out. Will the Saints bounce back and look a tad bit better than they did against the Chargers? But I would like to know your thoughts about the New Orleans Saints at this point in time. Do you think the Saints will turn it around? Do you think the Saints are making the right decision with Tyler Shuck at the number one reps, getting the number one reps, I should say, going into this game? Or what are your thoughts? I want to know who you think is the Saints' best option at QB. You can email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Don't forget about YouTube. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel and smash this like button if you don't mind. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the Who That Said podcast here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me as we preview this upcoming week 2 of the preseason matchup, Saints versus the Jaguars. Until this Sunday, you're going to hear me screaming, "Who dat?"